What's up, guys? Welcome to the first edition of Kuya's Corner. I'm your host, Brandon. In this episode, we'll be talking about the July 29th episode of Monday Night Raw. So the show kicks off with Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, and CM Punk all coming out to discuss their upcoming match at SummerSlam. Seth Rollins kind of laid out his special guest referee duties and how he might bend the rules a little bit. The segment overall was okay. Kind of more or less the same thing that Drew McIntyre and CM Punk have been saying about each other, with Seth Rollins kind of being the third wheel in this whole match. Honestly, I do hope the match at SummerSlam does deliver a little bit, even with CM Punk's in-ring abilities kind of deteriorating over the years. Also, his ring shape isn't the best, but the match should be better than this segment, hopefully. Next up, we cut to the backstage. Judgment Day's clubhouse has been destroyed, and it's pretty obvious it was Liv Morgan, considering the writing on the couch and the posters. Overall, the segment was pretty solid. We do see some seeds being planted with the Judgment Day split being imminent, especially with Carlito being questioned why he's even there in the first place by Rhea, and Finn arguing with Priest over Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, and Gunther. Carlito's comedic timing was pretty funny though with the PS5. R.I.P. Alright, and then we got our first match of the night with the Creed Brothers taking on Alpha Academy. Creed Brothers did pick up the win in this match with Otis failing to capitalize after the Caterpillar. We did get to see a post-match beatdown of the Creed Brothers and Gable from the looming Wyatt 6. Overall, the match was pretty short. Honestly torn on whether or not this match should have even taken place on Raw, or if I would have rather seen it at SummerSlam, or if I would have rather seen Uncle Howdy versus Gable at SummerSlam. Honestly, Gable does need to be on the card at SummerSlam. However, I do understand Triple H's philosophy of booking PLEs with not overstacking the card, which I respect in a sense. Just kind of sucks for Gable. Next was another Judgment Day backstage segment. Carlito, funny enough, actually got Dominic Mysterio match with Sami Zayn instead of himself. Segment itself wasn't really important, to be honest. It really just clarified a couple matches that were happening on the card. Next match was Sheamus versus Bronson Reed, and oh dear God, I hate Sheamus's new theme song by Def Rebel. I'm tired of hearing it every single week. We need Jim Johnston back. Overall, the match itself was pretty okay. Short like the rest of the matches on the card. Pete Dunne did get involved and hit Sheamus with a shillelagh to give Bronson Reed the upper hand for the victory. Match was as expected. Big Hoss match, you know, oh, I'm stronger than you. No, I'm stronger than you. Pete Dunne's involvement was pretty cool to see, especially since Tyler Bates injured. Kind of gives him something to do for the time being. Next match, Jey Uso versus Carlito. Pretty predictable, especially since Jey is arguably Raw's biggest babyface, so it'd be stupid to have him lose here. There was a pretty funny moment in the match where Carlito took a bite of the apple towards the end, and Jey Uso hit him with a spear for the 3 count. I really do wish Jey Uso was on this year's SummerSlam, especially considering he was in the main event last year, but hey, Triple H doesn't want to overstack the card, so I get it. Next, we cut to a backstage interview with Zelina Vega. Pretty forgettable. It was about a minute and a half, 2 minutes long. Honest to God, I forget that Sonya Deville is even back, especially with Zoe Stark and Shayna Baszler. Didn't really do anything for me, and I felt very indifferent about it. Like, it was good. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. It's kind of like, eh. Honestly, outside of the main 2 women's titles, the rest of the division feels like it's floundering and needs some kind of direction. And I feel like giving the women more TV time would help with that and kind of get people more involved with everything. Alright, then we cut to another backstage interview with The Miz. Love the comedic timing with R-Truth. It was basically a big announcement saying that Miz is going to host SummerSlam in Cleveland. But man, Truth kind of stole the show and kind of poo-pooed on Miz's parade of being host by cracking jokes and everything. It was a really funny segment overall. I really do wish we get to see R-Truth more in ring too, outside of just the comedic segments, but I'll take what I can get from him. Next match was Xavier Woods versus Karrion Kross, and like the other matches on this card, it was short, like my mom. It really doesn't feel like this match is supposed to be like the blood feud it claims to be. especially with Cross trying to break up New Day. Just the pacing of all of it doesn't feel right, especially with, you know, Kofi being out of the mix because he's injured, and Big E being injured for 2 years. I do hope moving forward that everyone involved just gets utilized properly, especially Karrion Kross and AOP, because dear God, they have no sense of direction, even with being a group. All right, next up was a backstage interview with Sami Zayn, kind of segued into Sami Zayn versus Dominic Mysterio. During the interview, Sami did say instead of teaching Braun Breaker a lesson like he did last time, kind of just wants to kick his ass now, which is pretty cool. Get to see a different side of Sami. The match itself between Dominic and Sami was okay. Wish it could have been a little bit longer. It was a similar scene to last week. Judgment Day got involved midway through the match and actually cost Sami Zayn the match by attacking him. Babyfaces stood tall, you know, Jey Uso came out. Oh yeah, yeet. Then Braun Breaker came out and attacked Sami Zayn out of nowhere, again, like last week, so just felt very repetitive. Braun Breaker actually did botch a move on this show. Sami Zayn actually went to go for a haluva kick, and Braun Breaker snapped too early, and he jumped over the rope. Kind of looked funny, to be honest. Next up was a White Six video featuring Dexter Lumis. Instead of an interview kind of setup this time, it was more or less an introspective piece onto what Dexter Lumis thinks about. He talks about someone building their empire on the edge of the ocean, and now Dexter Lumis is sinking, but he likes sinking. Very back and forth. And then he questions, you know, what should the buzzards do what should people do when the buzzards start circling? And then the camera immediately cuts to his face and he's like, run, 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 run. Overall, the segment was okay. Did a pretty solid job at progressing Dexter Lumis's character and kind of giving people a little bit of context. Hopefully we do get to see him in the ring sometime soon, because I believe it's been about 3 years since he last wrestled on WWE TV. Next segment was a backstage segment with Gable and the Creed brothers, and this is arguably the worst booking decision of the night. Gable demands that Adam Pearce makes a match official between him and the Creeds and the Wyatt Six for next week's Raw, instead of having it take place at SummerSlam, which initially is what everybody wanted him to do. I completely disagree with this booking decision. I feel like WWE is being stupid by leaving Gable off the card, especially with how hot he's getting with the Wyatt Six storyline, and just kind of having the Wyatt Six debut on a one-off episode of Raw kind of feels weird and out of place, especially since Bray, rest in peace Bray Wyatt, he debuted at SummerSlam 2019 with his Fiend gimmick, and it was very good and well executed with that. Next up was a 6-woman tag match between Lyra Valkyria, Kaden Carter, and Katana Chance against Sonya Deville, Zoe Stark, and Shayna Baszler. The match felt very chaotic, but not in a good way, in a bad way, because it was very hard for me to figure out who to look at or like who to pay attention to, because it was hot tag after hot tag after hot tag. It was like, we tag, you tag, we all tag. It felt very rushed, especially considering they had a very limited amount of time, because I believe this took place with about 40 minutes left in the show, and with one big main event left, it really felt like this was just rushed onto the show instead of really giving them a chance to shine. After this, we cut to the build-up for the main event. It was Gunther's video promo. Holy hell did he tear Damian Priest a new asshole. He speaks exactly how a wrestling dictator should be, because let's be real, even though he's called the Ring General, he's really more of a wrestling dictator with how he runs, you know, Imperium and WWE in general. He dissects Priest's motivations for being a champion in the first place, calling him an exploiter of the wrestling business and using his childhood trauma to further push his exploitation of the wrestling business. And it was very well done, in my opinion, and I do feel like it's time for Gunther to go on a very, very long run with the world title, because it needs it. And then for Monday night's main event, it was Gunther versus Finn Balor. Pretty good match considering it was pretty short, but this is the only time I actually agree with having a shorter run time, just because Gunther defeated Finn Balor pretty handedly, especially with the sleeper hold and chopping him all over the place. After the match, Gunther did lock in the sleeper hold one more time and kind of held it until Damian Priest came out to make the save. They had a post-match brawl. They fought all over the announce table, all over the barricades. And I don't know if your guys' feed did this, but my live feed actually cut off the brawl prematurely when Priest was about to DDT Gunther onto the floor. I do feel like it was a pretty good way to kind of end the show, kind of get everybody excited for SummerSlam and the world title match. I still believe that Gunther should win the title this Saturday. But overall, show was pretty okay. Some bright spots, there were some low spots. Everything just kind of canceled each other out to make a pretty average episode of Raw. Like, the stakes didn't feel like they were there. I feel like it was also just because of the pacing. Like, I noticed that there were video packages that would play in the middle of certain like matches for their entrances, and it felt like it was totally disconnected from everything else. So it was just very all over the place. And overall, this week's Raw gets a 5.3 out of 10. But those were my opinions. If you want to tell me about yours, let me know in the comments down below. If you did like the background music, make sure to check out the link in the description. This has been Kuya's Corner. My name's Brandon once again. Thanks for watching.